The echo of the peaks. In the heart of Kathmandu, the air felt heavy with a secret. Suman stood by the ancient stone lions of the square, watching the golden spires of the palace shimmer in the fading light. For generations, his family served the crown, believing the monarchy was as permanent as the Himalayas. But lately, whispers moved through the streets like a cold wind from the north. Suman felt a strange tug in his chest, a sense that the world he knew was about to tilt. A girl named Pema sat near the temple steps, sketching the bustling crowd. She had recently arrived from the western hills, and her eyes held the sharpness of someone who had seen the sun rise over different horizons. When Suman approached, she didn't look away. Instead, she showed him her charcoal drawing, not of the palace, but of the tired hands of the porters and the hopeful faces of the farmers. Pema reached into her satchel and pulled out a small crimson ribbon. "Change is coming, Suman," she said softly. "The people in the valleys are tired of waiting for crumbs from the high table." She spoke of a movement that promised equality, a fire starting in the rural heartlands that sought to rewrite the rules of the land. Suman touched the fabric, feeling the heat of her conviction. It was the start of a journey neither of them could fully grasp. They climbed to a high rooftop to escape the growing noise of the city. Below them, the contrast was sharp, the ornate gardens of the rich and the crowded alleys of the poor. Suman talked about his loyalty to tradition, while Pema spoke of the necessity of a new dawn. They didn't argue, they listened. The mountains in the distance stood as silent witnesses to their conversation, their snowy peaks turning purple as night fell. The following morning, a grand procession rolled through the gates. The king sat within a gleaming vehicle, a symbol of 1,000 years of history. Suman stood at the edge of the road, seeing the monarch's face for the first time. The king looked regal but weary, a man caught between an old world and an unstoppable future. Suman realized that even crowns could not stop the turning of the tide. Suddenly, the peace shattered. A group of young men ran into the street, waving banners that matched the color of Pema's ribbon. They shouted for justice and a voice in their own destiny. Suman watched as a protester, no older than himself, stood tall against the rush of the crowd. The air filled with the scent of burning oil and the sound of 1,000 feet drumming against the earth. The conflict had begun. Pema found Suman in the chaos and pulled him into a quiet alley. She was preparing to leave, to head back to the hills where the movement was strongest. "I have to go where I can help," she explained. Her voice didn't shake. She knew that the path ahead would be long and difficult, but she saw a version of Nepal where every child could go to school and every family had enough to eat. As they tried to reach the city outskirts, a stern guard blocked the main path. He held a long wooden staff, his uniform crisp and intimidating. Suman stepped forward, using the calm voice he had learned in the palace halls to negotiate their passage. He saw the guard's grip loosen. The man was also a father, a son, and a citizen, torn between his duty and the changing world outside his post. At the edge of the valley, where the road turned toward the mountains, Suman and Pema said their goodbyes. The sky was a pale, hopeful blue. They knew that the coming years would bring struggle and pain as the old and the new collided. But they also knew they would never be the same. They shook hands, a promise to remember the bridge they had built between their two worlds. Suman walked back toward the city as the first bells of the temples began to ring. The palace was still there, and the mountains had not moved, but the spirit of the people had shifted. He looked up at the highest peak, seeing the light catch the snow. It was 1996, and the story of his country was being rewritten. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was ready to be a part of the change.